Hello, everybody, and welcome in to another episode of the Couch GMs podcast. It's Thursday, September 25th, 2025. I'm your host, George Kurt, joined by the one and only Cody Roadcap. How you doing today, Cody?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to another solid slate of the NFL season before we start hitting with bye weeks.
Yeah, Mageddon's coming around the corner. I know all of us fantasy owners are looking forward to that as we finally get into the rhythm of fantasy season and hopefully get out of 0-3 purgatory over here.
0-3. I'm in a league like that too. So
Yeah,
0-3 hasn't broke 100 yet,
that's
in a
worse than me.
in a
Okay.
double flex league. So
No, I'm 0-3, fourth highest scorer of the league, just unlucky. And I got to win a World Cup, so that also helps.
yeah, 2-1 World Cup, trying to make that championship as we get closer and closer to next year's final round.
For those of you out there in the Couch Champs World Cup that are listening, we'll give you guys an update soon, and we'll make sure we give all of you listeners out there an update probably after this week. What do you think, Cody?
That sounds good to me.
All right. In the meantime, make sure you're following us so you can see all of that and more at the Couch GMs, Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok. You can always DM us or comment on our stuff with questions or watch us live Mondays and Thursdays at 6:30 East on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And you can ask your questions. We'll answer them on the air for you. But in the meantime, Cody, what's happening? We were talking about a Giants quarterback situation when we were getting off the air last episode on Monday. We got a confirmation that the Giants named Jackson Dart as their starting quarterback. So, unfortunately for us, no Jameis, but that's kind of where we expected it to go. It was the move that made sense.
Yeah, it definitely it makes sense. We did debate a little bit if it was the timing was right. Like, was it better to hold him for the Saints game because they have the undefeated Chargers coming up this week, but they weren't winning. I know Russ had a pretty decent game against the Cowboys, but he was also the reason he lost by throwing that interception late. So go with the young guy, trying to save the coaches' jobs because, like, really, Brian Dayball, their GM, their only chance of being back next year is now to make a playoff run with this rookie or at least in contention. So hopefully it's not another case, though, of like ruining your quarterback. And I will say, like, this Giants team, you would think they have Malik Neighbors, Abdul Carter, Andrew Thomas. Uh, why am I forgetting the other guy that they got from Carolina, the defensive end, Malik Neighbors? Like, they have a lot of pieces at like premium positions. Like, you think this team would be better than they are.
You'd think so, and I don't know if it's coaching or if it's just depth at this point, but I mean, they've been in purgatory. They obviously didn't have the quarterback play. With the way Daniel Jones was playing last year, there's no reason why they, shouldn't have gotten rid of him, benched him, whatever. But you would think Russell Wilson would have been a step up. They've played better than last year, but still just hasn't been good. Maybe Jackson Dart is the spark that they need, but I don't necessarily think they're going to beat the Chargers just because of that.
Yes, and the guy I was thinking of was Brian Burns, and they also have Kavion Thibodeau. So they definitely have some key pass rushers there. So hopefully, maybe not for you Eagles fans out there listening, but the Giants fans in the battle of Route the Turnpike, whatever route number that is, that's above my pay grade. Uh, they will start to turn things around.
And we'll see how competitive they can get this year if they get enough into contention to save the coach and GM's job. But I mean, I, there was high praise on Jackson Dart in the preseason. And do you think that at least it's a lateral move when it comes to fantasy moves for, I guess, the running backs, whoever ends up being in that spot long term, and most importantly, Malik Neighbors?
I'm intrigued. I don't know. I guess I'll say lateral. Like, I don't know if it will get worse. Um, I think there's an opportunity that it gets a little bit better for Malik Neighbors. I guess he's the one though, like, because we've seen Dart already like was already coming using his legs. Like, could the he run more than Russell and not push the ball down the field as much, or you know, does this more help Wandell Robinson more than a Malik Neighbors? Like, those are the things we have to say. But I'll say pretty lateral. at this point. I know Neighbors is also dealing with a little bit of an injury right now as well too, so that plays a factor.
It does. It seems like he's going to be good to go though, and we'll get to even more injuries in a second. But I think it's a lateral move because it was already inconsistent there. Like you would have Neighbors go off for 25, 30 points, and the next week he'd get 5. And I think with a rookie in there, it's going to be growing pains, but he's still going to get peppered with targets and be a solid, receiver. It's just I hope you're not expecting consistency if you're out there an owner of Malik Neighbors.
Yeah, but there is a chance you get that if like they just
Yeah.
start throwing him. That's the exciting thing about this change is like there's a lot to be unknown, and if you have a Malik Neighbors, you took him at the end of round one. This is your hope that he comes in. He's now featured as the number one guy we thought he was going to be, and it helps to pay off. So you're hoping for this being more than a lateral move.
Yeah, hoping for it, and I'm sure a lot of us will be keeping an eye on it. We'll give you an update on it next week as well. But with Neighbors' injury, it seems like he's going to be good to go, and that can kind of lead us off in injuries. And obviously, keep an eye on reports if anything updates between now and the game's kickoff Saturday or wherever. Um, I want to start in San Fran because there's a whole list of things going on in San Fran, as we have all talked about. I'll kind of list them all off, and then you and I can go and break in tangents. So Brock Purdy and Mac Jones, both limited participants in practice. The expectation is Purdy has a chance to go this week, but at least Mac Jones is participating and could go if Purdy doesn't. Their receivers are still banged up. Pearsall did not participate, but he's expected to be fine. It seems like that's kind of a rep management thing. Jawan Jennings did not participate, and he is much more questionable. And we got an update on Brandon Ayuk, who is still on PUP, and they said that he is not really close to returning. So it looks like he might be out towards like week 6 to 8.
Yeah, that's definitely a tough blow. They talked about how it being more than a ACL injury, which it still seems like it's. I mean, he tore that the very early parts of last year, so
He's
it's definitely
approaching the one
worth.
year mark now already.
Yeah, so hopefully he can get back, get healthy. This 49ers team could definitely use him as an additional piece. And even if it is week 6 or week 8, you're probably looking at like week 10, 12 till he's like, back to full speed 100%. So I don't know if we're relying on Brandon Ayuk this year. He can chill on your roster, your IR spot if you did draft him. But definitely discouraging news from his perspective this week. But those other guys you mentioned, the one for Ricky Pearsall, I know they say he's probably most likely to go. Um, but I understand not practicing Wednesday, but not practicing Wednesday and Thursday with a knee injury, it does give me a little bit of pause for concern about how effective he could be, even if he is active on game day.
It's true. The biggest reason I'm not too worried about him is because who else do they have right now? Like, they're going to have to pepper him with targets unless he literally can't be back on the field. So, like, it might not be pretty, but I mean, they don't have Kittle. They have CMC and him, and that's basically it right now. So,
Yeah, I hear what you're saying about the lack of opportunity, but I do think like it's this a knee injury. He wasn't on the injury report last week. He hasn't practiced for 2 days today, and maybe he does go and he'll have a big game. There is that possibility. I just think being limited physically doesn't bode well for production. Like he might just be out there more of a quote unquote decoy, and you have your again not many names outside of him, but big game for Christian McCaffrey. I think is the best way to put it.
yeah, big game for Chris McCaffrey. I'm trying to think of who else is even still there. They have Demarcus Robinson, but I'm not even sure he's ready to go yet. You got the two tight ends. One's Jake Tongs. I even forget the other one's name. And then you have
Luke Farrell.
CMC and Luke Farrell. Thank you. And then you got CMC and Brian Robinson are probably going to be rotating in if they're going to have to pepper the ball to CMC so much.
And then they have some guys. I just pulled up their depth chart. I didn't know this off the top of my head, but some guys that you've heard of before, but they haven't done anything at their last couple spots or for San Francisco. But Sky Moore, Kendrick Bourne, and Marquez Valdez Scantling, some names you've heard about, but haven't done much. So maybe they finally get involved this week.
We will see, but the wide receiver room in San Francisco is something to watch. I mean, I think we're at the point where if Jennings goes, he has a chance to be in a lineup. If they don't mention anything about Pearsall being limited, he has a chance to be in a lineup. I'm with you. I'm really concerned about him being DNP Wednesday and Thursday.
So let's just say hypothetically, we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Hmm.
Like I think if he even goes to limited tomorrow, you feel better.
Yeah.
But let's say he goes Friday, DNP listed as questionable, no updates, active on Monday or on Friday, excuse me, or wow, Sunday.
Yeah.
Get my days of the week right. How confident are you playing him?
All right. We'll let Cody fix his camera and mic there. It's how confident am I in playing Pearsall if we get a DNP and then no update and he's active on game day? I think I'm still good to go if I don't hear a bad update. That's kind of where I'm at. If I hear that he's limited, I start looking elsewhere. But the problem is, I know, like myself, in a lot of leagues where I am looking at like playing Ricky Pearsall, it's because I have another injury, whether it's Mike Evans, who we're about to talk about here, CD Lamb as well, guys like that, where you don't really have the um, option to play anybody else. And maybe there's some guys on the wire that you can go out and find if you're in a league where somebody who really shouldn't be dropped is, or you got like Io Manor or something like that out there. But even yet, if I'm not hearing that Pearsall is limited, I'm probably going with him over some of those borderline rosterable guys or a stream per se. Cody is. Oh, I hear you. I don't see you. Are you there, Cody? Potentially? No. I think you're just a black screen there. I'll keep talking about injuries while you keep messing with your setup over there. Sorry for the technical difficulties out there. I'll move on to Tampa Bay, who has a big matchup with the Philadelphia Eagles this week. I can see you now, Cody, but I can't hear you. So keep working on that. Um, Mike Evans is officially out 2 to 3 weeks with his injury to his hamstring. But I hear news that Chris Godwin may be back this week. So that would be a big boost for a team that's already dealing with some other injuries. I know Ibuka is also banged up a little bit, so he's somebody we have to watch out for as well. But I think he's good to go, and he's somebody who's going to have to lead that team with Godwin first. His first snaps coming back from his ankle injury. He's not somebody that I would want to throw right back in my lineup, but he's definitely somebody who should be stashed if he's available in your leagues. Um, but I don't think he's very widely available. Any luck there, Cody? No, cannot. Um, but anyway, Mike Evans is out. Godwin, we'll have to keep an eye out, but I don't think this really affects Abuka's status or clout in this matchup because he's still going to be that lead guy there in Tampa Bay. Moving on to the Kansas City Chiefs. We know that they're dealing with a couple of people on the injury report, but it doesn't seem like it's too serious for guys like Patrick Mahomes. The big news, Xavier Worthy was a full participant in practice on Wednesday, something that we haven't seen yet. He's been a limited participant in practice so far since he's been dealing with a dislocated shoulder. But now, Worthy, sorry about the in and out there on Cody. We're still trying to get him back, but Worthy is now a full participant in practice. That means he is expected to go back this week. If anybody's out there that was trying to stream another receiver or play a Juju Smith Schuster or a Hollywood Brown, I think that's kind of over if Worthy comes back into the lineup. And I don't think there's a problem with playing Worthy because of his big play potential. Like, you don't expect him to get a lot of catches, but that's just kind of the player he is. I think if you're going out there and starting him, you're expecting the 3, 4 catches, but you're hoping he breaks that one for a touchdown, takes a handoff for a touchdown, or stuff like they've tried to do with him when he gets involved in those gadget plays. And I think because he sat out the 2 weeks with the injury, even though it was originally reported he was going to be going through trying to play through it with a brace. I think that bodes well for when he comes back. He's going to be able to jump back into the lineup and be pretty much full speed. So I'm not too worried about throwing him back in your lineup if you're somebody who needs him in a flex position or elsewhere. Update from Dallas on CD Lamb. So we thought when we were on the air on Monday, he would be missing 2, maybe 3 weeks with his high ankle sprain. It's since been upgraded to he's out 3 to 4 weeks before he's reevaluated. And Jerry Jones even did say that there isn't a possibility for him to go on injured reserve. So we are waiting and seeing on CD Lamb. In the meantime, that's a big boost for George Pickens, who I know personally I'm not a big fan of, but if he's going to be the wide receiver one on what we see as a pretty high powered offense most times, maybe not this year. We have to wait and see because without CD Lamb, they kind of did get rolled over by the Chicago Bears last week. But I don't know if that's an every week occurrence for them. So George Pickens gets a boost. He's somebody you can immediately flex, maybe even a wide receiver 2 upside for him while we wait to see if CD Lamb comes back. Waiting one more second here to see if Cody's here.
Can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay.
Take a breath. I don't know if you heard a whole lot of what I was talking about. I can let you go back and try to comment on some things. I talked about Mike Evans being out, the potential of Chris Godwin being back this week. Xavier Worthy back in the lineup probably this week for the Chiefs, and CD Lamb officially out 3 to 4 weeks.
Yep, I did hear all that. I thought what you said was good. I did want to ask, though, where I got cut off about the Ricky Pearsall conversation. Because I was teeing it up for a question, and if you already answered it, we don't have to relive it. But if he is DMP on Friday, questionable, being that he's a 4:00 game, and if you have someone playing at 1:00, are you willing to risk it to wait for a Ricky Pearsall, or do you just have to play that other guy?
If I don't hear any updates that he's going to be limited, I'm cool with risking it for it. If I hear he's going to be limited, I'm trying to find somebody else, and I was
What if you
trying to
hear
find some names.
What if you hear nothing other than did not practice, questionable, has a shot to play?
Tough.
I know. I don't ask easy questions.
No, you don't. Let me try to see who's in the 4 o'clock window really fast and see if I can find maybe somebody that can go out there and get you points if you end up not having him. I mean, if he wasn't snatched up off the waiver wire, you can see if a Trey Tucker's still available in your league, but he was pretty widely snatched up. You could grab one of those other Ravens receivers. I don't think a lot of people have a Rashad Bateman or a DeAndre Hopkins, so that would give you another shot.
Maybe a Packers wide receiver
I
on
was going
Sunday
to say a
night.
Packers wide receiver on Sunday night. I don't know if a lot of people snatched up a Romeo Doubs, or I know Matthew Golden is rostered probably pretty much everywhere and all across platforms, but I like Dobbs as an option. So there's some other options out there that I think you can find somebody. There's even some Broncos wide receivers on Monday night. I know I was in a league where Troy Franklin got added and then dropped. He's somebody who you might have an option on, or maybe even a Marvin Mims, but I think I like Franklin better.
Cool. You can pick back up where you next on the list.
All right, moving on down. Tight end news: Isaiah Likely is expected to be back this week, but we're still waiting on practice reports to confirm if he's going to or not. And I wanted to ask you a question off of this one. We really didn't have Mark Andrews, pretty high on our rankings after the first 2 weeks. Then last week it seemed like they were really getting him involved. And then now we're seeing Isaiah Likely coming back. Do you try to sell high on Mark Andrews? Do you think we could even get value out of him, or you think he's still going to stay involved?
I mean, I think Mark Andrews is still going to stay involved somewhat. I think he is, he's like your Sam Laporta, TJ Hawkinson. They'll have some big weeks, some low weeks. That's kind of the tier he was drafted at this year. Obviously, Isaiah Likely's coming back. And I just don't know how much value you can get out of trading for a tight end. Like, even though he had a huge week after 2 bad weeks in week 3, what are you getting back for Mark Andrews? Unless he's like a kicker in a piece, like a two, not literally a kicker, but a 2-for-1 deal. Like you give a Mark Andrews and an upper echelon guy to go get a top guy, But outside of that, like I don't think just straight up Mark Andrews' value is much more than like a flex level wide receiver, maybe a low end wide receiver too. Like maybe like a Jalen Waddle, T. Higgins at best.
Hmm. So maybe it's more of a package for him. Or are you comfortable with still starting him after last week, or are you just kind of sitting him on the bench and hoping he builds more value and gets more consistent because of likely coming back?
I'd play him, but I mean, it's the tight end position. So like
Yeah.
at least with him, you feel like there's at least a chance that he could get in the end zone, go off for a couple catches. Where some of the other guys that you're like picking and choosing from each week, it's like, where are we going? You know, same thing. Like him and like Tucker Craft, I feel like are very like any given week they can finish as tight end one. Any given week they could be a two catch performance. And until you get the consistency, you just but the Ravens have a good offense, they're gonna score points, kind of favors the Mark Andrews in that.
Yeah, I think I feel more comfortable with Tucker Craft, and I don't know why that is because you're right.
He's been more
Ravens.
consistent over the for beginning of this year for sure.
Yeah. Plus, I feel like you're also looking at, yeah, the Ravens have the better offense, but the Packers' weapons, I don't think line up as highly in my mind as the Ravens' weapons do. Like, the Packers don't even have that runaway wide receiver one the way the Ravens have Zay Flowers. And the Packers are deep, so are the Ravens. But, like, if you looked at it, like, in the Ravens side, I could argue that any given week, Mark Andrews could be target number 3 or 4 in that offense. Tucker Craft, I feel like, is always probably at least target number 2 in that offense.
That's fair.
So, my thoughts on that one. But I mean, maybe we'll also see Isaiah Likely was fairly involved at points last year too. Maybe there's a chance that he steps in and does something, but that's not like I would add him in fantasy leagues if unless you're in a super deep league or a dynasty and he's available. But someone we can keep an eye on and see if he happens to break out like we've been expecting him to have a chance to over the first few years of his career.
Yeah, where we going next?
We're going to DC. And we're talking about Jaden Daniels, who is expected to be back this week. He's been a limited participant in practice, but concern about Bill and Terry McLaurin, who both are still DNP through Thursday.
Yeah, that's real concern. Um, McLaurin, you've been, not happy with his output to begin with. Now he's injured. Bill, you could say the same thing, but there was a lot less expectations coming in. But now if they don't have Bill, they don't have Eckler, that leaves them with Chris Rodriguez, Jeremy McNichols. McNichols had the big run that he should have been tackled, but he scored the touchdown. Rodriguez got a couple more opportunities. It's a good matchup though against the Falcons. So like if you needed a stream or a flex play, someone sitting on the waivers, like would you look at either of these two running backs if Bill doesn't go?
If Bill doesn't go, I think I would probably lean towards Chris Rodriguez because of volume. I know he's not the sexy play. It's probably McNichols is a sexier play, but it seemed like they were giving more touches to Rodriguez. So I think I'm okay with like emergency flex starting him if you need something if Bill's not going to play. But if Bill plays and it's still that three-headed split, like I think the only reason it looked like they all did so well last week is because McNichols had the big touchdown and they were up so big that they were just running clock the whole second half.
No, that's fair. I was trying to look up quick like what the actual snap breakdown was for these guys, but that is eluding me at this
If
moment.
you
But
keep talking for a second, I can pull up my other source that I use for our TikToks, actually. So I do post snap count and red zone target TikToks every single week for you guys out there. So if that's something that will really help you guys understand how teams are using guys, make sure you go follow us on there or Facebook, YouTube, where those are posted. But keep going, Cody.
yeah, for sure. I was just gonna say, I'm pretty sure McNichols only had, a handful of carries, but he had that one big run where Rodriguez got a lot more opportunities, if I'm remembering correctly.
So
So
when I'm
that's where I
looking
would lean as well.
here, it's Bill had 40% of the snaps, Chris Rodriguez had 38, and then I'm looking for McNichols had 26.
So
So Bill was leading the way, and that's kind of what we're expecting, and that's kind of what ownership rates of players in that offense are looking like. But Rodriguez seems to be the next guy up if Bill can't go.
yeah, I would, and I'm not expecting Bill to go this week.
Anything else in DC?
Nope.
Quick note on the Jets. Justin Fields is expected to return to the lineup this week from his concussion, so good news there for them. And I mean, Garrett Wilson still had a solid game last week, but hopefully, still good news for Garrett Wilson and Brees Hall as well.
Yeah, and Fields and the Jets, they get to play. Why am I blanking on their team? They get to play the Dolphins. So Dolphins don't have a great defense. I think if Fields is back in your lineup and you need a streamer, he could be in that conversation.
Just be careful on that one if you're starting Justin Fields because of them playing early game Monday. I mean, you could pivot to Tua potentially. Don't love the pivoting to Jake Browning against the Broncos, but that I guess that's another option, so you get points.
Good reason to call that out.
Yeah, so maybe not the best quarterback play for Fields, but I think. I mean, obviously Garrett Wilson's in your lineup every week, and I know Brees Hall was kind of a borderline flex on a lot of people's radar last week. I think he's upside running back 2 this week.
For sure.
Do you want to get to some other starts and sits now?
Let's do it.
Like always, Cody and I are going to go through starts and sits. We're each going to give 3, 1 running back, 1 receiver, and 1 of our choice, what we call a flex. It could be a running back receiver, or if we really wanted to, a tight end. But Cody doesn't talk about tight ends. But he does talk about running backs sometimes between when he talks about his wide receivers. So why don't he start off with his running back start of the week?
For sure. Running back start of the week. First, I want to give an honorable mention shout out to Mr. Brees Hall. We talked about the Jets playing the Dolphins, getting Fields back, their defense not being very good. I think he could be in for a big day. But my start of the week, um, now this isn't a guy like that was available in waivers, but we talked on Monday about the Najee Harris injury, talking about Omarion Hampton. He gets to play the New York Giants. Uh, he gets he should get vast workload. Um, he saw 19 carries last week alone after Najee Harris went out for 70 yards and a touchdown. That was against the Broncos defense. This Giants defense is a lot worse than them. So I think Omarion Hampton could be in line for a big day.
He definitely could. And I mean, we'll see if they try to work another back in there when they have the week to prepare. But he immediately shot up to like 80+% of the snaps in that offense and finally showed a little bit of the potential that we thought he had. So I think he, at this point at least, is every week starter. But I'm glad you put him on here just because it's worth remembering and he's in a good matchup.
Yeah, probably couldn't use him after this week on the start, so I wanted to give him a shout out.
All right. I am going to go to the Patriots. And why can't I find their matchup here? They're playing against the Panthers. That is right. Okay. So I have my running back start of the week as Travion Henderson. And I know he was kind of third in the pecking order for a while, but we saw 2 running backs in front of him fumble last week, one of them twice. So I think Henderson's kind of going to earn more carries by default. And in a good matchup where we think there's a chance they have a lead and are salting away a game, I think Henderson has a shot to be in the lineup this week.
I mean, his numbers have improved. He's still looking for his first touchdown as a pro, but he did get 11 attempts last week. So I think Travion Henderson against the Panthers, although their defense looked really good against the Falcons, I think it's still a good matchup.
Yes, I mean, yeah, it's an any given week kind of deal when it comes to the Panthers. It seems like young team, they're kind of playing inconsistent, but it's the volume with Henderson that we've been waiting for. And we've seen Stevenson get benched before for fumbling. So it's very concerning seeing him now fumble twice in one game and get benched again. And then to see Gibson fumble too just bodes even better for Henderson. And as long as he protects the ball, if he's at least semi efficient, I think he's going to earn a very solid slice of that running back backfield.
Alrighty, I'm going to go to my wide receiver. now, and maybe I just don't like the Giants. Maybe I like the pronunciation of Keegan Michael Key doing his reenactment of the high school scene, calling out names for football players on the Rich Eisen show today, or maybe yesterday. I don't remember what day it was. But I'm going to say my start of the week is Ladidi McConkey, uh, which is how he pronounced it. But Lad McConkey, and I think you could say any Chargers wide receiver, but this is just me like pounding the table. Like you've heard the concerns. We talked about it on Monday. Like what's going on with Lad? He's Quentin Johnson, Keenan Allen. They're seeing double digit targets. I think we're going to get it back under control. I think Lad's in for a big game.
Yeah, I think you're cool to start all three this week, so I don't really hate that start at all. I'm still concerned about Ladd, and I think if he comes out has a good game, but he's still third on the team in targets, I'm still concerned long term. But I'm not going to argue you this week when it comes to playing him.
Yeah, and anytime you're like saying you can start three guys, like there has to be preparation and prepared to one of them to fall flat. And I think that's what some of the concern with Lad is. Like, is Quentin Johnson for real? Is Keenan Allen going to keep this up? Like, all those questions are going to be true each and every week. But this is a good matchup that you almost have to roll with those three guys.
Exactly. And I think this is still a week where all three of them could do well. And I mean, there's even a chance that all three of them do well multiple weeks in the future, because you could look at like two of them get a lot of catches and yards, and the third guy gets the touchdown, salvages the week. But it's kind of a slippery slope where, like, week to week, it feels like the guy is Keenan Allen right now, but Quentin Johnson's kind of been the number two target so far.
Who's your start of the week at wide receiver?
My start of the week at wide receiver is Michael Pittman. And he's kind of a guy who's flown under the radar because we drafted him really late, and we have not really talked about him much on the show here. But he's a top 15 wide receiver right now, and he's had a pretty solid start, and he looks like Daniel Jones' number one target on a team that's actually had some decent quarterback play so far. So I think you're good to start him.
I'm going to take your word for it. As someone who still can't get behind this Colts run, I will say statistically, it makes a ton of sense to start Michael Pittman Jr.
Yes, it does. And now you have a flex, and I'm sure it's going to be a wide receiver from you. So what do you got?
It is. For my flex start of the week, we kind of hinted at it earlier, but the Sunday night matchup, Packers, Bears, we just saw, or no, sorry, Packers, Cowboys. We just saw what the Bears did to the Cowboys. Big games for Roma Dunze, Luther Burden Jr., and the talk has been there hasn't been a big game for any of the Packers wide receivers. Um, so Matthew Golden is the flashy name. Uh, the guy that everyone wants to break out, the young rookie. I think this is a good week to start old, reliable, not really old, but reliable Romeo Dobbs. And just to give you a stat line, the last time these two teams played in the play or in Dallas was the playoff game. He had 6 catches, 151 yards, and a touchdown. Now, devil's advocate, that was Dan Quinn. It's not there. Uh, or Dan Quinn was the defense coordinator there. He's no longer there. New defense, new system. But their defense coordinator is Matt Eberflus, who was the Bears head coach, and Green Bay has had a lot of success against them over the last couple years as well. So I think Romeo Dobbs is a sneaky, really good play and someone that you might even be able to pick up on waivers.
Yeah, I know he's available on waivers still in a lot of places that I play, just because people don't really want a piece of that Packers wide receiver room because of how much they've been spreading the ball around and such. But no, it's would like can I ask you a couple of guys who would you play instead?
Yeah.
So I'm sure the answer to this one, because I think I actually have him directly in leagues, but him or Michael Pittman.
I mean, I would play Romeo Dobbs, but Michael Pittman, that's just more of personal bias because I still don't believe in this Colts run. Who do the Colts play this week?
The Rams.
Yeah, tough matchup. Is there a game for real? You probably have to go Michael Pittman. I want to say Romeo Dobbs, but Michael Pittman's probably the right start.
Okay. And then Romeo Dobbs or Jacoby Myers in a group matchup
Dobbs.
technically against Chicago.
Yeah, still taking Dobbs.
Okay. I'm sure I'll come up with some more throughout, and I'll just start throwing you random like this guy or Dobbs. But we'll have fun with that throughout the rest of the show, I guess. Um,
Now watch, it'll be a Dontavian Wicks breakout game. So
no, who's the other guy that I saw catch a pass there last week? Man, some random fourth guy.
random fourth guy.
Yeah,
I mean, John Fitzpatrick, the tight end, caught a pass for the touchdown last week, but
no, I know it's another receiver, and it's someone I've heard of before because their Packers keep pulling all these receivers out. That it's like you
maybe they'll
better be
bring Bo
good.
Melton back on from cornerback
There
for
you
him,
go.
the real Travis Hunter.
The real Travis. Oh, this guy over here.
I'm just kidding.
um. Okay, my flex start, and I'm gonna try to ride the high of last week, and I'm gonna go with Jalen Waddle. Waddle in the Monday night game against the Jets, so you always have to wait until that. But the last 3 times he's played the Jets, from what I saw on Twitter earlier, he's had a minimum of 18 and a half full PPR points in each of those games. So he torches the Jets, not even Tyreek Hill. So I'm gonna ride the high.
You do that. I don't mind it, especially if you think Tyreek Hill is going to be lined up with Sauce, and then just opens up more for a guy like Jalen Waddle.
Yeah, Tyreek Hill is a little bit sketchy to me still, but he's one of those guys with the upside. I think you have to play him. And then Waddle, I actually feel more comfortable about this week, as crazy as that sounds.
All right, you want to do sits?
Let's do some sits.
All righty, I'll kick mine off with the sit running back of the week. Fan sensation, great guy, but Cam Scattaboo, running back for the Giants. They're making the quarterback change. But this is not as much about Cam as it is just this Chargers defense, how well they've played. Um, I think he's going to get a lot of opportunities. I think they're going to want to run a decent amount with Cam Scattaboo just to take some pressure off of Jackson Dart. But I think it will not amount to a ton of fantasy points.
See, you're going against the grain on this one because almost everywhere else I've heard say start Cam Scattaboo. But I am with you where, like, if they fall behind, I don't know how much they're going to run the ball, and he still might not get the opportunity, and you're kind of relying on a touchdown. So I don't hate it.
Well, I'm glad you don't hate it.
I don't love it either, but I don't hate it.
Yeah, I mean, I know running back is already thinned out a lot. So, like, if your options are, I don't know, Cam Scattaboo versus like Jalen Warren versus Minnesota. Like, I know Warren's had a pretty good win, but that's another tough matchup. But like, I'm looking at like the Fantasy Pros ranking currently right now. They currently have him as like RB20 behind guys like Chase Brown, or in front of guys like Chase Brown, Travis Etienne, Alvin Kamara, even Quinshawn Judkins. Like, I like all their matchups better than I like Cam Scattervoot versus the Chargers.
Yeah, I think it might be a little bit of an overreaction on moving him up that far. And I think it's also an overreaction of like moving Chase Brown, for example, down that far because they had a really bad week in Cincy last week, sure. But I have to think with the talent on offense, it's not going to be that way every week, even though they don't have Burrow. And I think, Brown's probably the safest option besides Chase. So overreaction, have him down at running back 21, in my opinion.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of buzz about Cam Scatteraboo. I think he's a good player, but I'm not playing him this week.
Yeah, no. I play him if you have to, is the way I will say it with him. I am going to Kansas City, and I am benching everyone on the Chiefs, especially that has the tag running back, because there's a split, and they're playing the Ravens. And even though the Ravens did just give up a ton of rushing yards to the Lions, that's also the Lions, who are widely considered the best rushing team in the league right now. I think the Ravens are going to find a way to lock that up, and the Chiefs are going to have to score points through the air to keep up with Lamar Jackson on the other side.
Yeah, I don't blame you for benching all of them.
Who's your wide receiver?
My wide receiver is for tonight's game, so that'd be one Mr. Marvin Harrison Jr. He has not looked great the last 2 weeks. I believe he has 5 catches over those 2 weeks after having 5 catches and a touchdown in week 1. So it's just him and Kyler Murray aren't quite on the same page, and when they are, it seems to slip through his hands. So off to a slow sophomore slump, it appears, for Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he has a chance to bounce back for sure. But it's a Thursday night game. It is the Seattle Seahawks, which their defense is playing lights out as well. So I am going to take a break from Marvin Harrison Jr. this week. And not that it should really go into your fantasy decision, but if he has a bad week, it could ruin your Sunday for you because you started slow on Thursday. So I guess devil's advocate, if he has a really good week and he's on your bench, you're going to be kicking yourself for 3 days until Sunday gets here. But I think the likelihood of that is a lot less than another poor performance from him.
And that's why I get to be the guy who splits it and plays him in the Couch GM's World Cup because I don't have a better option and sits him in our league of record.
Yeah. And so you're just going to hope for he's one of those 10-point games because he catches the touchdown, right? Like that's what
and
you're kind of.
He's been touchdown dependent, which is sad for somebody who we drafted so high and had so much potential.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. I mean, we're gonna also have people listening to this on podcast platform on Friday, and I'll get to either laugh at you because he went off, or be like, "Huh, that was actually a good pick," and we'll figure out which one that is shortly here. Fan question, really quick.
Sure.
All right, from YouTube, we got I'm 0-3 offered flowers for Reishi Rice.
I wouldn't do that.
No, I'd keep Flowers.
I mean, you're 0-3. Rice has 3 more weeks of being out. Like, can you afford to not have someone start for 3 more weeks? Now, if you were getting Flowers for Rice, and I'm reading this question, then yes, I would do that and not hold out for Reishi Rice. But I wouldn't give up something as valuable as Zay Flowers for a guy coming off a suspension that you're not going to get until week 7 when I started 0-3.
Yeah, so I'm not sure which side you're on. Sorry if we misunderstood you. We're taking the Flowers side. We both agree. And even though he's going to be inconsistent like he has been in the past, like he has more upside this year, I think, than he has any other year of his career. And me personally, I'm hoping this year for him is like the final year that Hollywood Brown had in Baltimore, where he actually was right around a top 15 wide receiver the entire season.
Sweet.
All right. I think I'm up here at.
So he did clarify.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
He said other way around, and he did provide he has London, Olave, Pittman, and Coleman. So, yeah, if I missed that one. Mm-hmm. But I think I'm still on team Zay Flowers.
I'm on team Zay Flowers as well.
Cool.
All right. My wide receiver sit of the week, I'm going to go to Pittsburgh, to a guy who's very much underperformed so far, and I'm going to sit Decaf Metcalf. Steelers matchup here. I did not have this prepared either. I stink. They're playing the Vikings over in Ireland.
Dublin.
I think it's Ireland. Yep. So tough matchup. We already talked about how you weren't a big fan of Jaylen Warren, and the passing offense hasn't been consistent enough, and DK hasn't really been the feature there, that I am trying to find ways to move him out of my lineup unless I need him, almost kind of similar to how Marvin Harrison has been.
At least with DK, and I still agree it's a good sit for this week, at least with DK, he has 2 touchdowns over the course of 3 weeks. So he's at least found ways into the end zone. He's not putting up and he's never been like a ton of catch guy. But at least he's still being targeted in the red zone and stuff like that.
That's a fair assessment there. So, you mean you sit him and risk that he's going to catch the touchdown, but I think you can find elsewhere.
All right, and my flex sit of the week goes to Nick Chubb, or whoever plays running back for Houston, whether that's Woody Marks, someone else that they might try and play.
Is Damian Pierce still there? I thought he was the guy who was getting hyped up earlier.
For a while he was. So, but yeah, I know, like, on paper you see 0-3 Titans. You also see 0-3 Texans if you're looking at the piece of paper. But this Titans defense is solid. I mean, they're not like upper echelon, but they're really good. They still have Jeffrey Simmons in the middle. They have some good pieces, and I think there's going to be another low scoring game because this Houston offense is struggling right now. So, not a lot of opportunities for touchdowns. An older running back, good defense, recipe for not a great week.
I agree, and I already think Chubb has been, a bench guy essentially since he's been starting anyway. Like people probably start him in week 1 hoping for it, but he has not really stepped up to the occasion. We don't know what's going to happen when Joe Mixon comes back or even when Joe Mixon's going to come back. We still haven't heard an update from what I've heard on his status, and a lot of people have been trying to jump on the Woody Marks bandwagon this week. Is he somebody who you're trying to speculative add in case he ends up taking over and then we have the disappointment of Joe Mixon?
Sure. If you want to add Woody Marks this week just to try to get ahead of, if he does have a really good game and he's like the fab darling of next week, sure. But I'm not like running out there. I'm not cutting someone that I shouldn't be cutting to pick up Woody Marks.
I'm with you. I was just surprised to see he was getting so much clout on, Twitter this week, and I'm like, he hasn't done all that much. People are like, he's getting more carries every week, and I'm pretty sure he went from 1 to 2 to 5. Like, it's not that crazy.
Yeah.
So,
I think yeah, I'm not chasing the Woody Marks. Nope.
too many mouths to feed, especially after we get Joe Mixon back, and who knows how that's going to happen. But I have one more sit. My flex is a wide receiver, and it's going to be T. Higgins. And I just talked up how Jamar Chase is still your safe guy there, and how even though he did bad last week, Chase Brown should be fine. But I just don't like the piece of the pie on a consistent basis for T. Higgins. So have me sit T. Higgins going against the Broncos defense, which I think is fairly tough.
I agree. You ready to talk streams?
Let's do it. All right, streams of the week. This here we're going to talk about a quarterback, a tight end, and a defense. So you could start for at least this week. And you started the other one. Do you want me to start here?
Sure.
All right, I'll start with my quarterback, and I'm going to go to Vegas for a guy who's actually started the season fairly solid in fantasy points, and he is in a matchup with. I'm having a hard time finding matchups this week. What is
Bears.
wrong with me? Thank you, the Bears. Geno Smith is my guy. And I mean, the Bears did play a solid defensive game against the Cowboys, but I think he's done enough, and it's still, I think, an inconsistent Bears defense where I feel comfortable if I need a guy or I've been searching for that streamer since Joe Burrow has been gone or such, that Geno Smith can be your guy this week.
No, I don't mind the Geno Smith one at all. I actually think you can play both quarterbacks if you needed to in this matchup. I think Caleb Williams, it is a green matchup, so to speak. So I think you could play him if you needed to. But after seeing what Caleb Williams did against the Dallas Cowboys defense, it's hard not to think you can stream Jordan Love this week.
And I don't blame you because, I mean, it seems like the only quarterback who didn't have a great game against the Cowboys so far was Jalen Hurts. And I mean, Jalen Hurts still ended up having a decent fantasy output because of rushing stats. So
Yeah. And with no CD Lamb, I think the only reason that you give concern with like Jordan Love is, do we get to a point where they're just running clock at the end or something like that with no CD Lamb? Uh, their one offensive lineman is now banged up. Probably no Trayvon Diggs. Like how, but I think Jordan Love is a good play this week. And that whole Packers team wants to bounce back from how they looked abysmal on Sunday against the Cleveland Browns.
And the one thing that the Browns have that the Cowboys don't is a solid, consistent defense. So
Correct.
if you're going to give the Browns something, they can play defense. And I guess they can play
Very
special
well.
teams too. I don't know.
I guess they can play, or the Packers have been bad at special teams since the year after Desmond Howard returned to kick in the Super Bowl. So
That's fair. That is very fair. I'll move us to tight ends, and it's the waiver wire darling of the week. I'm going Hunter Henry on this one. And I was surprised to see that even though he was added in so many places, and I think he's currently tight end 2 on the season, at least in NFL.com leagues, he's still less than 50% owned. So please go out there, add him. He's been one of the better tight ends so far this year, and he should be way more owned than that and could be way more started than that even.
Yeah, I think Hunter Henry's a great pick. I would pick him over my guy, but my guy is Dalton Kincaid for versus the New Orleans Saints. The Buffalo Bills have a good matchup. Kincaid might frustrate you. I believe last week he was targeted twice in the red zone, and one got tipped at the last second, and one was kind of a drop. It would have been a little bit of a tough catch. So he was almost had a big week. It ended up not being such a great week, but in another plus matchup, if you're just rolling a guy out there, I think Kincaid could be it.
I like it. I've actually been starting him pretty much every week since I lost George Kittle in a league, and he's been good enough at tight end, and he has the boom potential being on that good Bills offense that I like him at a pinch, especially against the New Orleans Saints. One more here for me. I have a defense, and I'm going to keep picking on the New York Giants. I'm going to pick the LA Chargers. They already have one game where they scored more than 15 on defense, and I think this is a good chance for them to do it again.
And I'm going to go with the Commanders versus the Falcons for my stream of the week. I mean, seeing the Panthers shut out the Falcons, I know it's divisional. Michael Penix had a bad game. Uh, they're going to look to bounce back, but I think the Commanders could, the Falcons have struggled to score points all year. So I think Commanders, the scoring below, and there just needs a couple turnovers, and they'll have a big week.
I can't argue with you there. And before we get out of here, why don't we talk about some of our games of the week?
And that's my cue for make a bumper, Cody. Stop forgetting.
Every single week, this guy.
We're just gonna that's gonna be the running joke. Like you're gonna cue it up, and then I'll be like, "Oh, make the bumper for next week," and then that's gonna be
That'll
the
be it. Okay, it'll be
yep
just as iconic as Survivor picks back in the day.
Survivor picks.
It took so long for you to fix. I was kind of disappointed when you fixed it.
I know,
Just
and
some Couch GM's lore for anyone out there who is a new listener that didn't hear that one from I think it was either a season or 2 seasons ago. And we're approaching 300 episodes, so that was we've been
that's
around.
crazy.
Yeah, right.
All right. Games of the week. I mean, it's called Game of the Week, but I have games, so
Cody just wants to keep talking.
yeah, because I think there's a lot of good matchups this week. So what I'll do is I kind of have four. I'll talk about three. I'll save my actual game of the week and then let George talk.
Okay.
Um, but one Viking Steelers first time in Dublin. That's going to be great to see. Um, college football has played over there the last 2 years. It's been great. Looking forward to seeing the NFL. Reminder: if you're on the East Coast or if you're on the West Coast, those games start super early. So make sure you're setting your lineup Saturday night or getting up early Sunday morning. And then Steelers, Vikings, uncommon opponents. Rodgers, Vikings, not uncommon opponents. And when you think Aaron Rodgers, you think the last couple seasons have not been great for him. But when he has faced the NFC North, he is 36 touchdowns to no interceptions. So over the last 2 seasons. So that's something to keep in mind for this upcoming game. I think the Vikings get it done, but that'll be a fun one. Same thing with Ravens Chiefs. That's going to be a fun one. But I do have a question for you.
Okay.
One of these teams are going to be 1-3 after the first month of the season. Which team has the best shot to overcome it? And which team, like, I don't think we're going to say this team is dead if they
Mm-hmm.
go 1-3. But if the Chiefs do, with how the Chargers are looking, the Broncos, like, uh, I can't say in September that the Chiefs are dead. I just can't. But I feel like they have to win this game more than the Ravens do.
They do, and desperation is definitely a big thing. But I think the Ravens are better equipped to win the game. I think right now they're the better team. I mean, they did
Unless they
lose
fumble in the
to
fourth quarter.
yeah, if Derrick Henry can hold on to the ball, which is not something I thought I'd have to worry about after the early part of his career when he just didn't. Now he's fumbled 3 times in 3 weeks. In the fourth quarter, two of them, I want to say, maybe all three. I think it was two of them in the fourth quarter. Week two, they didn't. Um, but the only thing I'm worried about with the Ravens is holding a lead because that seems to be the big thing that they do is blow leads. But they've went toe to toe with the Bills and should have won the game. they still went toe to toe with the Lions, and the fumble kind of cost them in the end. The Chiefs, like, ugly week one loss to the Chargers, who I get they're a 3-0 team, but I don't think anyone would put the Chargers in the same league as the Lions and the Bills right now. And then they did go to toe with the Eagles, and even though the Eagles played a bad game, they couldn't pull that off. And then they beat the Giants not even super convincingly. Like, I just think the Ravens are the better team right now, and I think they have the better chance to overcome 1-3, but I think they're going to be 2-2.
Yeah, I tend to think they're going to win too, but never count out the Chiefs. And then of course, I had to talk about Packers Dallas. Micah Parsons coming home. I know sometime recurring guest Tyler Snyder for the Couch GMs podcast has already made comments about being sick of hearing all the Micah Parsons dramas. He shouldn't watch this game. They're going to talk about it all game, every game, deservingly so. There's no tribute video. If you care about that, I don't. But a lot of people do think I picked Jordan Love as my stream of the week, and you think the Packers are going to, run away with this one. But I do want to. Obviously, they lost last week to the Browns. The Browns defense is legit, much better than Dallas is. But there is something to monitor with Green Bay when it comes to not only the team winning, like if you're trying to pick your survivor pick, or if you're trying to, think, oh, good matchup for Josh Jacobs, good matchup for Matthew Golden. I picked Romeo Dobbs. I think it could be a good game. But quietly, the Packers have an offensive line problem. They have 3 starters not practicing on Thursday. One went limited to DNP. They've already had 8 different combinations along the offensive line. We're going into week 4. So they just need consistency. So that does have a little bit of concern, but I think Green Bay ultimately pulls this one out.
Do you think that that means any concern for guys like Josh Jacobs, who I knew is also banged up, but we don't seem really concerned about, like being able to run the ball consistently?
Yeah, their running the ball has not been good. He is averaging 0 yards before contact to start the season. So it has not been good for them. I think they can, maybe that's just me being a hopeful Packers fan, that they will turn it around as they start to get these guys back, get more continuity on the offensive line, not switching people from the left side to the right side in the middle of a game like they have been. But yeah, Josh Jacobs seems to be very touchdown dependent right now. So I have some concerns about that long term.
Him or Marvin Harrison tonight?
I would still go Josh Jacobs.
That's what I was thinking too. And don't worry, he had 0 yards before contact, and I heard a stat last week that Chase Brown's at -1 before contact. So at least they're doing better than the Bengals offensive line.
Great. That's not something I want to compare myself to. But I talked
It's
about
a very
3
low
honorable
bar.
mentions. Who is your actual game of the week?
My actual game of the week is the test for the Colts to finally make Cody believe that they were a real team. And I don't think they're going to win it, but I still think they're a solid team. Colts at Rams.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fun one at the 4 o'clock window if you don't want to watch the Chiefs Ravens game. Uh, or yeah, I don't mind that matchup at all. Like Jonathan Taylor, I said on Monday, I keep forgetting we do the shows on Monday now, that he's been the best running back in football through 3 weeks. How does that look against the Rams? Devontae Adams, Puka Nacua are balling out to start the season. So a lot of fun pieces in that game. So I like that game for sure.
Yeah, definitely it's a measuring stick game for the Colts. I still think we're going to see a solid game out of Jonathan Taylor regardless of what happens, but um it's also a, bounce back game for the Rams who had a heartbreaker last week. So a lot of storylines. The undershadowed game in the 4 o'clock window because of obviously Ravens Chiefs, but that's not even your game of the week. What do you have as your game of the week?
Yeah, my game of the week is Eagles versus the Bucks, 2-3-0 teams fighting off. Um, and literally since like the last couple of years, I feel like the Bucks have had the Eagles number in most games, even when they were the team that eliminated them when they had the ultimate collapse. They beat them last year during the regular season. Like the Bucks have just always played the Eagles really well. And the Eagles have, although they had more of an offensive explosion in the second half of last week, they were pretty pedestrian on offense for, you know, 2 games before that. And the Bucks, on the other hand, they are not like the Ravens, not knowing how to blow leads. They know how to come back in the last seconds,
Yep.
having come back in the fourth quarter in 3 straight games to go to 3-0. Just a lot of things to watch in this game, a lot of fun players, and I think it'll be a really good game and one that will come down to the final 2 minutes.
And that would kind of be different for the way this series has gone because I feel like every single time it's been a blowout one way or the other. The Bucks obviously have their number. I think Jalen Hurts is 1-3 against the Buccaneers. They did get one regular season win against them, but the big thing is like Jalen Hurts' biggest hit as a quarterback is he has trouble handling the blitz, and he did handle it well in the second half last week when the Rams kept dialing up on him. But the Bucks, for whatever reason, get in his head. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can overcome it, or if the Bucks can overcome their wide receiver injuries.
Yeah. All right, man. We just hit the hour mark. Let's talk about Thursday night football real quick. Seattle Seahawks at the Carolina. Wow. Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
Dude, it's been a long week. I'm sorry for all the stumbles, the mispronunciations. I will improve. I will get better. Cardinals 1.5 point underdogs, over under 43.5. How you feeling about this game?
Seahawks been rolling. Sam Darnold trying to prove he's not a lateral move from Geno Smith. And I mean, Geno Smith's been doing fairly solid too, but he's got the Seahawks winning games. So I I am interested, I think, to see as a measuring stick game for the Cardinals. Can they get Marvin Harrison involved finally? Can they step up and win a big game in their division, which is something they haven't been able to do over recent years, which is why like they've kind of been that middling team of they get, quite a few wins. They get to the 7 to 9 mark, but they can't get over the edge and compete for their division. And it seems like right now their division's tough. They're even though they're a good team and have a chance to compete for a wild card spot, they're at least going to have to beat one or two of their teams in that division to get there. So
Yeah, and I know they lost on a last second field goal, but this Cardinals team is also 2-1, like you mentioned, just the way they're playing. Zach Charbonnet is active for this game. Um, how does that make you feel about Ken Walker versus Zach Charbonnet? Charbonnet in your lineup?
no, Charbonnet's not in my lineup. I think Charbonnet takes a couple of carries to spell Walker, but I don't know if he's healthy enough to take as much of the workload as he was getting pre-injury because I know he still was limited. I think DNP on Monday and then still limited most of the week. So
Sweet. I think that is, I don't see any other major injuries. There is a cornerback out for the uh, Cardinals, and I believe their left tackle is out too. So Kyler Murray will be running around like a Madden style quarterback a little bit, and the Seattle Seahawks defense is legit. So I like the Seahawks in this one.
I like the Seahawks as well. And why don't we wrap up this show the way we should with a fan question?
You got it.
All right, over on Twitch, we have, hey guys, I was wondering, should I trade Jonathan Taylor for Puka Nakua? Running backs, he has Gibbs, Scadaboo, and Corum. Wide receiver have Wilson, McConkey, and Pickens. As much as I love Puka, I would be worried about your running back depth if you made the move.
Yeah, if you if you're a full point PPR, I might do it just because
Just
you have
deal with
Gibbs.
the rough running back too. I also don't know how many of those receivers you can start. It would probably be at least three. So you'd have Puka, Wilson, and then take your pick on McConkey and Pickens every week.
Yeah, the running back depth would be scary. Um, so
Yeah,
full
I mean,
PPR, I would.
Scadaboo would probably be your number one guy, and I think he's probably more in line for the next few weeks. But once Tyrone Tracy comes back, I have to think Tyrone Tracy's still taking a piece of the pie.
Yeah, I mean Gibbs JT is a good running back combo
Yeah,
as well. So
it's just a tough argument because Puka is literally wide receiver one in fantasy right now. He's number one in targets and catches in the NFL. So it's like, do you have the opportunity to get a guy like that, especially in a 1-for-1 too often? So maybe I'm with you. If it's full PPR, I might do it, even though it's a risk, and then you're kind of scavenging the waiver wire to find that other back, or maybe you can trade either McConkey or Pickens and get a decent RB2
Yeah,
into a package.
the more I think about it, I think I'm leaning to saying yes because of how well Puka's been. You have Gibbs as your RB1, so you're locked up there. Like you're ultimately going like hero running back, but you also got Puka from talking draft strategy. And then to your point, now could you pair a Wilson and a Corum, or a Pickens if he has a couple big weeks while CeeDee Lamb is out, and go get you a second running back to kind of stabilize your backfield. So I'm actually leaning to this just because of how valuable Puka has been to start the season. And I just said JT was the best running back in football to start too. So, but you have Gibbs there.
You probably have who would be the runner-up for best running back in football right now with Jahmyr Gibbs. So
yeah, so I like it. Go get Puka.
Make the move. I like being aggressive. Oh, my bad, Cody.
You're good. You're good. Anything else you want to add before we jump out of here?
No, I mean, as a reminder, we're always open with questions. You can hit us in the DMs. You can find us on social media, comment on some posts. We're always here to give you some advice throughout the season. And good luck out there to anybody in matchups this week.
Yeah, George, I couldn't have said it better myself. We love answering questions. Live on the show Monday and Thursday. And you can hit us up on social media at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, TikTok, all those good places for those questions. I'm Cody Roadcap. That's George Kurth. And we'll be back next week. Good luck, everybody.